this session of our talent experience. And we are going to just understand a little bit more about MXP SOP, which will further help us progress into what we have already been doing with standards implementation for the MXP. And for all of us who are still, who are yet to implement standards, MX standards, this will hopefully give you more clarity as to how you should go about it in your entity. But before we go ahead, hello everybody, my name is Shreya Sharma. I am MCVP team of ISEC in India. I am also TL Talent Experience, and I also have my GST team here. Karo is here, Nee is here. Nee is my team leader, as you all know. And I'm also part of MXP steering team. Along with 11 other entities. It's really nice to be here. And like I always say, like I am a part of you. And it'll be great to discuss on a few things which will help our entities a lot, which help our entities understand MXP better so that we can, in short time, improve experiences for all the members that are there in ISEC. And with me, I have Nee. Nee, can you introduce yourself, please?
Hi guys, in case you forget me, I'm doing innovation for MXP. Hi, yes.
Okay, thank you so much, Nie. So Nie and I have prepared this session, and we'll just dive into it right away. We will be understanding a little bit about what we have been doing before. So why SOP for standard implementation is something which will help us do a context evaluation, which will help us reflect what we have been how the MX standards came to be for now. Then we will understand how to design SOP. This will further help, Nie will take this up and help you understand what are all the things that you should consider while designing SOP. And we will also have a little bit of reflection time. And in this space, a lot of things will be understanding about taking inputs or how to give your inputs for your entity. Thirdly, we have standard tracking. This will further help us understand if we are MX standards, how do we track them and how do we understand what impact is it creating in our entity. And finally, we will be having a GCP idea. So I know that a lot of us have been consciously trying to make an effort to understand how member experience can be better. And if it relates to any MX standard, that is why, we can all share amongst ourselves how we can implement each standard, each MX standards, and help our entities grow. Okay, to start with, understanding why SOP is needed or how SOP can help us. We start with the team processes and team standards itself. This is a little historical context evaluation, I would say. What did we learn from TM processes and team standards implementation is something we all know. We all understood this in the previous RFS, in the MXP summits, in the first commission call that we all attended as well. So in the team standards, we only consider team leaders as the only factor that affects membership experience. But as the research continued, we understood that the member experience is hampered or empowered by a lot more aspects than that of a team leader. The team standards, which we already had, it gave us a checklist. It gave us an understanding of how the experience should be, but it was not enough, as it was only devouring on the team aspect and not understanding how the entire membership experience goes. It does not account for a lot of minor and major aspects of member experience. And that is why a lot of the member experiences still feel incomplete, even if the team standards are delivered properly. Now, coming to the next point, team standards was not built on member journey and specific timeline. If you see, team standards are just for a team management purpose, and they don't necessarily define how a membership journey would look like. Or let's say, if we have membership journey in ISEC, how would it look like if team standards are implemented along the same? And that is why we always had a little trouble understanding the timelines, how it can be, how it can support both the aspects, right? How can member experience support team standards, or how team standards can support member experience, which leaded to a situation that member experience is not delivered and we don't know the peak time of each stage. It was in three major only with no defined sub timelines. So a lot of entities, like for example, let's say in Vietnam or Indonesia, your team standards timeline will be very different from my team standards timeline, right? Each entity has a very different timeline. And that was another thing which we could not understand, because the team standards timeline would not tell us about the membership journey. So let's say if there is a problem in the membership journey, For example, if I realize that, okay, as an MCVP, there is something missing in my entity when it comes to membership experience, I could not pinpoint that problem, which might be with the TM processes or team standards, right? Coming to the next point, there are more factors that affect the completed experience of member and not just team experience. And that is why team leaders are not the only responsibles for the factor or the effect that membership experience has. Team leaders need to solely handle many responsibilities for member experience, which can be overwhelming. This was a little bit of context evaluation, understanding how team standards were before. And now coming to the MX standards, how it has changed or how it is coming up to be. First thing is built to facilitate membership journey. Every standard sticks to particular stage of the experience. Now, if we see the funnel, right, every funnel has particular standards that need to be delivered alongside, or a particular SOP that needs to be followed to enhance the membership journey. So that, let's say, if there is a problem with anything in the funnel or anything in the membership journey, we could understand that what timeline of the funnel is going on right now. And if, let's say, it's for example, let's take realization, and if there's problem when the realization period is happening, we can understand at what standards we were delivering in um, the realization funnel. And that is how we could pinpoint those problems out and solve it right there and then and enhance our membership experience. Secondly, it simplified processes and standards, focus more on implementation of the MX model, and includes tangible aspects. Earlier, at least when I have looked at my entity, as an LCVP also, I was not able to ever come up with data insights, let's take, right? I could not say, I could just say that I could just use my intuition and say that I feel that members are feeling burdened, or I could feel that members are feeling burnt out. However, I could not tell why, or I did not have data to support it. But when we look at the MX standards, all of them focus on the entire membership journey, which helps us understand that, okay, if there is a problem, where is it located, how do we track it, and how do we impact after that, so that if, let's say, there is any problem, we don't just look at the people side, but also look at the organization side and use the strategic decision making. um, Coming to the next point, we aim to deliver our promise about MX in everything we do. We personalize relevant and measurable experiences. So when we say MX standards, now if you look at MX standards, it's not just a responsibility of the team leader or an LCVP. A lot of standards also include the entire executive board, or the MC, right? And that is how we realize that the membership experience is not sole responsibility of team leaders, but at the same time, it's responsibility of everyone in the organization to provide a good membership experience. And that is how we promise that, okay, MX is going to enhance the membership experience not only for our members but also for the organization. Team leader is not the only factor. This is something that we discussed. And lastly, ensuring all standards are facilitating the in and out journey of member. It's where the leadership development happens. Cool. This is something about the MX standards, something that we already have gone through. Now that we have understood the history, let's understand with each other, what does SOP mean for TM? According to you, I want to ask you, what do you think SOP would mean for TM? Some of us have also been in operational backgrounds, right? And we have seen operational SOPs. But according to you, when we say that SOP is going to be there for TM, how do you think it is going to be, or how does it look like? How well, I mean, what do you think about it? Let's hear some answers. You can either like unmute and speak to me, or you can also put in the chat box. But I would love to hear your voice. um, let's hear some answers. Okay. A set of step-by-step instructions to help members carry out routine operations. Perfect. That's great. This is, I think, a very simple way of putting how SOP works. Thank you, Iko. And anyone else who wants to share as well? Just perspectives, nothing, no right or wrong here, obviously. Just perspectives of how SOP can look like for TM.
I think like it's just a series of activities that's
Mhm.
required to enable the process of TM or MXP in this case.
Okay. Thank you, Alyssa. Great. Now, I think Alyssa, Iko, and I both relate to this one definition that it has to do something with the operational routine, which will enhance the experience, right? Which will give some routine to the experience and will also give routine to us as we are tracking. We have, I think, one more sharing. We follow talent attraction, selection, and assessment, onboarding, etc. Right, like giving step-by-step procedures, right? Makes sense. Now, moving forward, now when we look at the Google definition of standard operating procedure, because trust me, like I had a hard time understanding what SOP means because I had never been in an operation background. Yeah, this was and first time we were having SOP in TM. So I went on to Google and understood like how what even SOP means. Now, a standard operating procedure is a set of written instructions that describe the step-by-step process, like we said, that must be taken to properly perform a routine activity. SOPs should be followed the exact same way every time to guarantee the organization remains consistent and in compliance with industry regulations and business standards. Now, why am I reading this? Is because it is exactly what it is also for TM. This is something exactly what we are going to follow in TM as well, right? Now, when we look at the definition for SOP for TM, and we have to divide it and simplify it, we just have to understand that, okay, SOP for us is going to consist of just 6 to 7 aspects, which will give us entire standard operating procedures for our entity. Basically, understanding and creating a routine for our processes and standards to ensure excellent experience for members. This covers global minimums. Now, if you have gone through the launchpad, you would find the global minimums there, which the ISIC International has provided, or like we can say that NIE has done through the research and provided us the global minimums, which is basically the done of the standard, that if this minimum is being fulfilled, the standard is being done. Now, secondly, every entity would have their own way of doing these minimums, right? How I do these minimums will be very different from how Alyssa do this minimums, or how Louise does this minimums, right? It will be very different. Now, how does my entity get the minimums done is something that you define for your entity, because you know your entity the best, and also because we are trying to build a personalized experience for members, right? So you know that what will work in Australia or what will work in India. We define what are the minimums that we should, like, what to do to get the minimums done. Thirdly, who does it? Now, if we have to build a routine, checking the MX standards is a big thing, right? We can't just depend on the LCVP teams or just the TM portfolio to take care of the MX standards as well, because there are so many aspects which might relate to the MX, right? Moving ahead, how is the standard being tracked? People, can you hear me? Just like a quick checkpoint because my screen is stuck. Um, Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, Shreya, we can.
Okay,
Yes.
okay, thank you so much. Okay, thank you. Right. So the third point is who does it in your entity? Who does the MX standards? Now, some of the MX standards can also relate to external aspects, right? And we can take example of BD, who is going to provide opportunities to members and alumni. Let's say now this is something which TM, if just TM has to do, it'll be very difficult, and that's where the synergy is needed. Or we can also say the key resource of MXP is the BD product, BD portfolio, right? Then coming to the next one, how is it being tracked? Now, if you are considering your own activities to get the minimums done, how do you think you can track it as well? Do you need tools? Do you need surveys? How does it work for your entity best, right? Coming next, how do we measure the experience? Now, if you are taking some, let's say, if you are considering surveys for understanding how the membership experience is going to look like, how do you think you can measure the impact of how the standards are being delivered in your entity, right? Because for some of us, we can just take the NPS of standards, right? We can understand the net promoter score of members. But for some entities, if you are using tools, how do you think you can measure the impact through that? right? And then lastly, now that we have everything set, we have people assigned for who are going to do these standards. How is it being tracked? How to measure the impact? How to measure the experience? Now, how do you make this a routine? How do you make this a cycle? Because that is how we can simplify things, right? So this is how a TM SOP, if simplified, can look like. Cool. Now moving ahead. Now, how does an SOP help? We also have like a little bit of understanding, because it creates a cycle of processes which enables us to understand flaws in the journey. Something that we talked about, that once we have a routine set, or once we know how the funnel is operating along with the standards, if there is any problem, we can understand where the flaws are happening in the journey. Secondly, eases the job of MCVPTM and LCVPTM and enables them to work on the membership experience. As an MCVP or as an LCVP, we want to focus on more things that are more quality oriented for our members, right? Now, when we look at MX standard, it helps us look at those aspects as well, which are not necessarily a part of MX, but gives us more time to explore as to how can we support MXP better as VPTMs, right? Along with our executive boards or MCT. Thirdly, operational planning allows them to understand the key aspect and focuses. Now, I really love this model. Why? Because these are the 5 aspects that just gives us an understanding of what TM really is or what TM really should do. The first one is talent growth, then talent capacity, talent experience, talent intelligence, and TM as a strategic partner. Okay. Fourth, divides the work front in the entire leadership body, who collectively delivers MXP and takes responsibility of membership experience, which is contrary to the previous TM processes and standards, which were just the responsibility of TM portfolio as a whole. And lastly, again, repeating that in ensuring all standards are facilitating the inner and outer journey, which I think is the only sole ownership oriented aspect of ISIC, which enhances the leadership development which happens. Um, Cool. Now, how to create SOP is something Nee is going to help us understand better. Nee, you can take forward from here.
Okay. Okay. So can you help me to click the slide, please?
Yes, definitely.
Okay. Cool. So I just want you to again remind you about some factor when you start to create the MX standard. And especially no, not creating. We already have it. When you create the SOB for MX standard delivery, there are gonna few elements that you need to put it in mind before you actually build it and create. The first thing is gonna be. Can you click, please? The first thing is gonna be when you design the standard and when you design how the standard should be implemented, keep in mind about what is the direction, the strategy of the whole organization. Especially, for example, if the whole organization is doing change management, then usually we're gonna need to build a agile behavior for the member. So which means that in the community creation, how you can embed the element of agile when you deliver the standard about community, how you can also build the value, asset value in the way that you deliver team practice, or how you can also deliver the part about list pay when you design the job description for the member and so on. Next slide. Yes, the second factor is yes, this one is, I think that we also talk about it for several times, like when we impact on one thing and then it's gonna affect to the rest of the organization. And also when you implement one standard, always remember that we can actually integrate the way that we implement one standard in a lot of way as well. Like even in the way that we implement a culture, or in the way that we working on the managing the operation, we still can deliver a certain standard in this way. And I think that you can also research more about GCB of a lot of company, and especially recently, I see a lot of company is focusing on well-being, and we have a lot of GCB about how they integrate the standard about well-being into the way that they manage the operation, the way they manage the culture, the community, and so on. Next slide, please. Yes. The next part that I want to let you understand clear before you start create your SOB is understand that you need to have the SOB for the standard and the SOB for the non-standard part. And the standard for the SOB for the standard part is is the procedure that we need to create to ensure that we deliver the standard and for the member. So you remember that we have 16 standard. Under every standard, we need to have a procedure on how we're gonna deliver it. However, in the whole member journey, there are some part we don't have standard, especially before they become our member, which is our customer. So what means in this way, when they are not our customer, we don't deliver standard, but we still need to do some kind of procedure to ensure the operation is happening and ensure that the whole customer journey is happening, especially like the process for attraction, the process for brand attraction, selection process, and until accept like overall the recruitment and remuneration. So which means that when you build when you can imagine that when you create the SOP, it needs to be including and cover the whole customer journey in this case, so that when you are working on it, you will not miss, you will not like asking about, okay, what is the whole what is the thing that we gonna do right now, and why we like, because I read, sorry, because when I do the global soga, right, the soga one, and when I asking about do you have the SOB for your NT, and a lot of people come to me and ask what is the non-standard SOB. So this is the part that I want to let you understand about it. Next slide, please. Yeah, it's a bit slow, right? Yeah, so this one is the visualize of the standard and the timeline of the standard, and as you can see here, yes. Just be noticed that which part we need standard and which part we don't have standard. However, for the finish state, we don't need SOB here because it's already a part of SOB on platform. That's when they start the experience, they're gonna count based on the duration and the starting day, so that they're gonna make the experience, the finish state happen. So there's still a state of finish to happening, but we don't need to plan for it because it's already integrated on the platform. Next slide, please. And yeah, and you can you click next? Yeah, click next one more time. Okay, the next part is about the minimum SOB and the advanced SOB. So basically, because we know that when we have sitting standard and also for other program EFD, right, we have some standard is mandatory, some standard is not mandatory. However, for our member, if it's not mandatory, then why do we have the standard? Then we can just cut it out. But then if we have the standard, then we need to ensure that we deliver it 100%. However, at the same time, we understand that a lot of entity and also in your context, you don't have always have the capacity to implement everything, and not all of the standard should be implemented in a very like complicated way. So that's why when you have when you create the SOB to implement the standard, you can think about what are the simple activity to ensure the standard are being delivered with small capacity, but you still can ensure the objective. So that in this case, when you do education for the team leader and especially the executive board, they're gonna know about what is the minimum of delivery when they're focusing on the deliver certain standard, so that they know that in the team practice, right? Team leader, they know that okay, this is the minimum thing I can do, and this is the most important thing that I need to make it happen. But also at the same time, we can let them know that if you want to make it even better, then this is the moment when we need to have the advanced SOB. So basically, advanced SOB is something that beside the objective of fulfillment, the SOB, we want to also improve the NBS of the standard that we are delivering. So that's why in some case and also when you check the GVGT, right, we also have the minimum and the advanced SOB in this case. So when you usually when the advanced SOB gonna come when we want to deliver and when we want to improve the NPS of the standard. I would always encourage you, if you have capacity and if you really want to make your member experience in a very super good way, then the advanced one is gonna be always the best things. However, at the same time, it doesn't mean that if you don't have capacity, then you cannot do something advanced. If your entity have a significant problem and you believe that if you deliver this standard, one single standard that's gonna make a very big impact on the whole entity, then you can spend your effort to focusing on one standard and make it make an advanced SOB for it, so that all of the SOB gonna be minimum. But then regarding to this standard, it's gonna be an advanced way of delivering it, so that in this way you can execute it in an excellent way as well. I would say example about minimum SOP is like community rules. So basically, in the minimum way, it can be delivered as having a session in the induction, talking about community rule delivered by brand, VB brand. However, in the way that if we deliver in an advanced way, then actually we also can have icon campaign to actually guiding people about the how the community rules should be look like and what they need to communicate, how they can understand about ASIC way, how they can understand about what to communicate and what not to communicate in the community. I would say this one as example, so that you can see that there's a lot of way to implement one standard, but it's gonna be depend on yeah, what is the capacity you have and which one you want to go for. So yeah, you can start with the minimum one. Next slide, please.
Okay. Great. Now that we understand like the MX standards and how we have been doing or creating the change management for our entities, let's have a little reflection time, which will help us understand how we are doing this better. So I would suggest everyone to go to this link, which is bit.ly slash just a minute. Yeah, bit.ly slash mxp dash reflection time. I'll also put this in the chat box. Just give me a minute. Here you go. Yeah, this is the link. And here you will find your entities as well as three questions that you have to put the inputs for. I can show you how that looks like. Just a minute. Yes. Are you able to open, people? Okay, great. So I am also going to describe the questions on the side so that you can understand what each question means. The first question is, what do I need in advance to make MX standards successful in my entity? Now, a lot of us have been doing standards for a while now. And the only thing which we have to understand a little better is before we actually go and implement these standards, or let's say if you have already started implementing in standards, what do you think we would need in advance or in prior of starting the MX standards to make it successful in the entity? This is the first question, and you can start writing your inputs in your respective entities row. Okay, I do see some responses. And just to add to your thought as well, let's also think of, let's say, some research that you might need to conduct, or let's say innovation Okay. Can you hear me?
Yes, Shreya, we
So I
can
was
hear
just
you.
saying that we can also think of, right. Okay, perfect. Thank you so much. We can also think of tools, trackers, or research or innovation, some innovation time with the commission that can help you understand MX standards better or like implement it better in advance. All those things can also help you apart from the resources or documentization.
Shreya, we can't hear you.
Yes, I mean, we are just taking some time to put inputs right now. Okay, coming to the next question is, secondly, what mindset will help my entity understand MX standards in the best way possible? Now, change management is not easy, and often change management is related to behavior or mindset, or how we can make things easier or more understandable when it comes to change management, right? Now, secondly, how do you think your entity will understand MX standards better? And what kind of mindset do they need to understand MX standards or MXP in itself? This is the second question. We are going to again take 1 minute and put the inputs. For the third question is, what changes do I need to make in the existing processes and experience of members? From the ongoing experience that your entity has been giving to the members, a lot of things can be working really well as well. You don't have to take them out. So in the existing process or experiences, what change can you make to welcome MX standards better in your membership experience? This is the third question and the last question. And you can take like another 1 minute, and we are going to move ahead with the next part. The sheet is going to remain with you, so don't worry, like you will be able to understand even after we are done with the session. Okay. We can come back to the PPT. If you want to write more inputs, you can still write it like after the session as well for you to help understand this change management better. But coming back to MXP SOP framework, now I'm going to share one MXP SOP framework which I already did when we had when we I already shared this framework in the MCVPTM group as well. You can check here. Now, once you do this SOP framework, this is going to further help you implement all the things that we just talked about.
Freya?
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, now, yes. Let me try to share my screen. Oh, go achievement dashboard. What is the link again? To- Hmm? What is the link again? Be in here. Hmm. I think she have some problem with the Wi-Fi, but we're gonna be fine. Okay, so basically this one is for the framework, right? Um, yeah, so this one is one of the recommendation that we also recommend you when you design the SOB. You can also design it in this way. Basically, it's like when you design it, one of the things we need to understand is these five very clear who gonna deliver what kind of things. For example, in the job description, it's not gonna be only the JD of the team leader, but it also need to be the JD of LCBB and team leader at the same time. And also when you define this JD, understand how the task could be fulfilled and so on. And based on this one, how we can actually deliver it. Some entity you can actually design it in a very detailed way, but then my recommendation is understand that what is the basic step that it need to be happen. For the SOB, we don't need to make it super complicated, but then the main thing that you need to focusing on is what is the content that we're gonna have inside of the material when we deliver certain space. So for example, when you look into like personal development evaluation, or when you look into like education cycle and development or about delivery, then the step is gonna be quite easy, but then ensure that you have material and you are guiding for the people on how things should be delivered. If it's a section, if it's gonna be a session and what is gonna be the learning environment in this space, then you need to know, okay, how the session should be designed, and you're gonna guide for the people in this kind of thing. But if the onboarding delivery is just like in a meeting, then you're gonna it's so which means that the learning environment right now is just like this person is learning with the team leader, like learning circle. Then the way that we design the material gonna be also in this case. My recommendation is when you are looking to on up this standard, right? You can also imagine in your mind is when you deliver it, what's gonna be the environment, how it's gonna be look like. Do you want it to be delivered in the touch point like personal or in the with the team leader, or gonna be in the whole induction space with a lot of people. So in this case, there are some entity you can choose to like onboarding the team leader in just like a normal transition, but then there's some entity you are onboarding the team leader in a submit, for example. So it's very depend on in all of the standard that you're having, which one is the one that you want to focusing on. Okay, cool. So this is the recommendation, but of course the thing again, we cannot like tell you exactly how it's gonna be look like and how it's gonna be in the man, because it's gonna be very different. Even between different duration, we're gonna have also very different way of deliver the standard as well. So my recommendation is always put it as one of the focus, that in the upcoming big egg when it's coming, you are knowing what is the minimum way to deliver these certain standard. The next part is gonna be about how we're gonna tracking the standard when we implement it. So in this case, I later in the next section I'm gonna show you this one, but then we're gonna put all the material that we need to track in this one in later on. But then I have something that I want to let you understand about the tracking and the clear part in this one. Usually in the past as team, we're gonna have global engagement survey, and this survey is run quarterly. And right now we adjust it into global asset member survey to make it more inclusive. However, remember that this survey is an anonymous survey and it's will run to in gathering the insight, the qualitative insight. 1 second, let me just show my face so that um okay. So it's gonna be is an anonymous survey, and this will run to collect the qualitative insight of member experience. Because when you look into the survey question, you can see that we're asking about how the engagement overall happen, how the performance, how the development happening overall. However, it cannot tell you exactly which member receive which standard or not receive which standard and so on. So which means that the game's gonna be something like giving you overall insight in the way that when you need to have a quarter review, when you need to have a monthly, no, a semester review, it's gonna give you the insight of what happening with the member in terms of quality. However, if you used to do it Jane before, you're gonna know that there is a kind of, so there be a way of tracking that we usually don't track before, which is the tracking the standard. And in this way, of course, before we also tracking the fulfillment of the team standard, right? However, right now the standard tracking is run based on the timeline of member experience funnel. This is also a little bit different as well, because for the games, we're gonna run it in quarter routine to understand the insight in the quarterly, right? However, the standard tracking need to run and tracking based on the timeline of the experience. For example, if right now we have the member is starting to get accept, and then we deliver certain standard, and then they're gonna get approved, get realization. Then when they get approved, we need to track the standard. Did you receive this kind of thing before you start the experience or not? And if after 10 days of realization, for example, they still not receive this one, then it's gonna be a problem that we're gonna bring it forward to talk with the team leader. And of course, if you are tracking in this way, it's not like it's gonna be a very visible survey. It's not anonymous like again, because it allows us to know exactly which member, which name in which team have receive certain standard or not receive certain standard, so that we can track it before the real life, during real life, and after the real life finish, so that we can understand whether which kind of standard it deliver and what is the NBS. And also beside this one, you can also track further thing as well, not just the fulfillment and NBS. And my recommendation is it could be done as a survey. However, it could also be like a tracking tool that when you are working with the team leader, you have a tracking tool of the team leader to understand that this member have this standard to deliver or not, and so on, so on. So when you have the insight from game, and when you have the insight from the standard tracking, you have quantity and quality, and at the same time that you can compare the input in a better way. Okay, so which means that I want to clear in this part because it's gonna affect to how you are building the tracking framework in the entity as well. Yes, and what is something that you're gonna expect? You can expect from games. What is the insight, and what is something that the global survey cannot tracking, that in the local context you need to track experience by experience. And this usually happen for any ELD experience as well. We need to track experience by experience. And if we're gonna track, it's based on the perspective of member of our customer, not the team leader. Yes, and with some of you may you already see, or maybe you are not seeing yet. Yes, so the minimum of the we're tracking the fulfillment and the NPS right now. If you want to track further things, and if you, yes, if you want, you can. But the minimum if we tracking ensure the fulfillment is good and also the satisfaction of the standard we deliver is good. Okay, so let me see how much time do we have. Okay, so after I check the time, how much? I think we don't have much time. Yes, okay, we don't have time. Okay, Clive, we can have very quick question. I intend to have a space to share GCP, but then Shreya is not here. If there's a member also doing EST, does that mean that we track twice? Yes, correct. So it's gonna be like we with the team. So in the tracking tool with the team leader of the current role, you're gonna track it, and also in the tracking tool with the other people, you're gonna also track the role with the EST based on the team leader. Yes, Eco already asking. Yeah, even there's a member to three experience. Yes, so we're gonna track three things at the same time. So we're gonna know which one makes sense, which one is not as well. Cool. Okay, so well, lovely. Okay, you guys are very cute. Okay, so I think that I also share with you about this one, but then I just want to show you this one, and oh, nice. And I just want to show you this one, and it's quite very interesting for us as well. But then which means that when I have a conversation with evaluators and Isuru about how the standard implement should be look like and whether is it being well delivered in AI team or not and our or not, we start to realize that we are actually missing a lot of things. But also at the same time, we start to have a lot of idea on how this standard should be delivered. So basically before we have this kind of conversation and when we before we going standard by standard, we don't know that okay, what should be the activity that we can have or what is something that we need to start to do, like even like community, for example. When is the last time that we actually start to focusing on this kind of topic, I would say in AI and our level. But then the things like the key outcome after we start to talk about standard by standard, we start to realize that there's a lot of good idea and it just they're gonna be not like a good right or wrong right now because everyone is also trying and we are still plug and play to see what kind of standard is make sense and what how we can implement the standard in different way as well. And imagine that when I talk about not this slide, when I talk about that, you can start to implement the minimum SOB or you can also have advanced SOB. Imagine that if one of you just focusing on one standard and make one advanced SOB for that standard, and when you combine and sharing the GCB together, then you're gonna have 16 standard that in an advanced way, and you're gonna understand how this standard should be delivered in an advanced way. So my recommendation is right now, yes, I also don't know what's happening in the next AI and our team. They're also gonna have a lot of idea as well. But if you also have a lot of way on how doing it, I encourage you to try it out. And then when you have the SOB, you can always bring it to us so that we can have you to give feedback. Regarding to the minimum and the advanced SOB, we're gonna have more recommendation for you in the upcoming time when we understand how the network can be implemented with low capacity when you don't have a lot of people and when you have a lot of people to implement experience, then how the standard minimum and advanced should be look like. Okay, do we also track MCB? Oh, good question. Do we track BII? Actually for MCB, LCB, BII, RD, no, I don't know, let me ask Alina, she's next here. um Reason for MCB, BII, LCB, they need to have cell leadership. So in this case, we still asking them like what kind of standard that you want us to deliver for you. But if they say that okay, actually I can managing everything by myself, then you don't need to deliver it for them. But then you can like recommend them to learn about something, or you can recommend that if you want to like look into this kind of thing, then I recommend you to read this kind of thing, for example, so that they can lead by themselves. This is like a skill that Eva told me that for BII and MCB, LCB, they need to have it. So this is your best okay. But you can track it, okay? But you just ask them, do you want me to do it? If they and you encourage them to have cell leadership. Okay, cool. Yes, I also never think about it. we don't track MCB, but track the delivery for MCEB. Yes, correct. You're gonna talk to MCB as MCB in the direct team leader of MCEB, and you're gonna ask the MCB, did you deliver this for your MC? Did you working on this for your MC? And also as a whole MC, right? The thing is like for the whole MC, we cannot create a community for ourselves, right? But we like it's not we create by for ourselves and we enjoy it, but then actually we still can have the space of like MCEB connecting with partner. MCE like at TM, you can also encourage the space like MCEB partnership with alumni, MCEB partnership with other MCEB as well. It's also a type of community. You know what the best for them? Yes, correct. Yes. So it's also the end of the MS standard session. I would love to answer more of your question, but we're gonna have a break. I will not force you to stay here, but if you want to have any question, yeah, thank you so much. You can also type in the chat and we can also talk. But then if you want to have break, just have a break, okay? And see you in the next session. Thank you so much.